My body's aching in the cold and rain. I can't go home and get you on the next train. So here I stand, I'm just waiting for you. Everybody I know that makes the trains. Everybody I know makes the same mistakes. Playing games, I turn around, I kick my heels, I count the clowns. I'll let you another lonely man. Oh, but there's something in the air that says I'm in the right place. So I gaze at the crowd, I'm trying to find the right face. And there it is, so you're sorry too. Everybody I know has to face the trains. Everybody I know makes the same mistakes. But there's a hole in the ground that seems to eat me up. I can't say enough about the two of us. My arms are breaking, I can't hold you enough. No, I can't hold you enough. No, I can't hold you enough. I wanna love you again. 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 I wanna love you.
Once again, we find ourselves on a train crawling through mountains and jungles. At a painstakingly slow pace, we make our way eastward towards Yogyakarta.
It's the same mistakes. When I took you to a glycerin party every night, I followed on my lead when you put out the light. I couldn't fight the feeling that is warmer than rain. I couldn't fight the feeling that you can't buy trains, 'cause I know.
Yogyakarta, also known as Jogja, is just like any city in Java, overpowering its guests with noise, people, and hordes of motorbikes. The city is teeming with history and culture, but we came to see something with much more vintage. The Prambanan temple, located in the suitably named Prambanan plain, is a long since abandoned Hindu temple complex. At 47 metres high, covering an area of 39.8 hectares and decorated in the most exquisite stonemasonry, Prambanan is a mind-boggling sight to behold. According to local folklore, a wicked and vengeful warlord commanded an army of demons to construct the temple in just one night, all to woo a beautiful princess. With the gift of archaeology, we now know this isn't true, but it does go to show how incredulous this temple really is. The temple was originally built in 850 CE by a.k.a, the ruler of the Sanjaya dynasty. Although exact details of its construction are not known, there must have been a vast amount of manpower and resources diverted to the temple's construction. The site would have been a major religious centre at the time, with the royal court making offerings and sacrifices to protect their domain. At the height of the kingdom, it is reckoned that hundreds of Brahmins would have inhabited the complex. These days, it is mainly populated with international and local tourists, all gawping in wonder at the place. The stone reliefs on the temple walls retell the Hindu epics of the Ramayana and the Bhagavata Purana. All this adds to the discipline and attention to detail required to make such a place. The Alpak River was even diverted from the temple grounds to protect it from natural erosion. However, even with sacrifices and willpower the most faithful, no building or empire is immune to time and the force of nature. For a variety of reasons, Prambanan was eventually abandoned, and within its grounds remained thousands of relics from the long-gone era, tantalising clues about the people who built it. Deciphering these clues became extremely difficult due to the colonial masters taking the most attractive statues and using them as mere garden ornaments, a trend still followed today. The Durga statue was the most important. Likely it was too heavy to steal this one. After all, the temple and the relics were largely built to honour her. The Prambanan Park also houses other temples with their own fascinating histories. It is also a congregation point for schools and societies, and, for some reason, deer.
Oh, boleh?
It seems odd, but the kids seem to like it. The majesty of Prambanan is hard to understate, and if you're in the area, then you really must go. Especially as it includes a trip to a much more mysterious site. According to the same folklore of Prambanan, a giant called King Boko lived in a palace above the hills overlooking the Prambanan plain. This palace was called Ratu Boko. Unlike Prambanan, however, Ratu Boko has only been briefly referenced to in archaeological research. Its exact function still remains a mystery. One of the leading theories is that it was some form of fortification, evidenced by its moat, its sloped ballistic-proof walls, and its strategic location. Fighting uphill in this heat is a daunting prospect. The next theory is that it was a Buddhist monastery. The sheer amount of religious artifacts found in the dig sites makes this claim quite likely. Interestingly, many Hindu artifacts were found amongst the Buddhist ones, suggesting that a multicultural Java was not such a recent invention. The final leading theory is that it was a personal retreat for the royal court, kind of like how Balmoral was a retreat for the monarchy in Britain today. The grandiosity of the site suggested it was made for someone extremely important. The palace would have included many rooms and chambers, enough to house the entire royal entourage. These inner buildings would have been made from wood, hence their eventual degradation into nothingness. Also, the pool at the very top is known to be used for ceremonially washing away the king's sins, though these days it is used for housing amphibians. It was known that a cataclysmic eruption occurred at Mount Merapi, making most of the area completely inhospitable to human life. This is the main theory for its desertion. I could talk for literally days about this place. I believe these picturesque hilltop lawns still have many stories to tell. It fascinated me so much that I hope to dedicate a video to it exclusively. Despite much of the original masonry being pilfered for building materials, restoration is underway. Local craftsmen are using traditional methods to redo the ancient work. Ratu Boko truly is living history. For public transport, Jogja has a near identical system to Jakarta, the Trans Jogja. Luckily, Prambanan can be easily accessed from the Route 1A. Do check the direction of your bus though, as it only goes one way anti-clockwise around the city. Ticket prices for the Prambanan Park start at $25 for an adult and $15 for a child. If, however, you want to throw Ratu Boko into the mix, then you'd be looking at $45 for an adult and $25 for a child. For more information, please go to borobodorpark.com or simply click on the link in the description. The very next hot and humid day, we found ourselves back at Yogyakarta train station. The ticket office, in true Javanese style, is in a completely different building to the station itself. However, the staff were more than helpful. They got us the best deal for our quick trip north to Surakarta. Even the security guards seemed happy to see us. Yogyakarta station, like most Indonesian stations, does not meet UK safety standards. That said, our time there was relatively uneventful. An eclectic mix of passengers boarded the train as we waited patiently for our departure. A bit more about our next destination. Surakarta, for some reason also known as Solo, is a relatively small city in central Java. Around 500,000 people reside there, and temperatures tend to stay in the mid-20s all year round. The nearest airport, and large city in general, is Jogja, but Solo can easily be reached by train. The 75-kilometre journey takes around 1 hour to complete. Tickets can only be bought from the station, no advance discounts I'm afraid. There are 2 train routes to get there. The less frequent Sriwadari train for the princely sum of 90 US cents, or the more frequent Pramex train, of which tickets only cost 56 cents. By the time we had arrived, the hot and humid weather had turned into hot, humid and rainy weather. We then boarded Surakarta's public transport system, named, you guessed it, the Trans Solo. I'm a big fan of Indonesian buses. For one, the aircon gives you a much needed respite from the relentless heat, and also because of how you get to listen to the driver's playlist. No idea what they're saying, but it is catchy. Fascinating as it is, we didn't come all this way to see buses. Under the intense gaze of Brigadier General Slamet Riyadi, a local boy and hero of the revolution, we went to visit a real-life fairy tale kingdom. The Keraton, the Javanese word for castle, is a beautiful yet neglected 18th century palace complex and home to the Surakarta Sunanate, one of the oldest dynastic lines in the world. To get to the main area, you have to pass through many gates, each more interesting than the last. It seems that every building is built in honour of one of their great rulers and an homage to their ancient history. The glory days of the Sunanate are a distant memory, as in the not too distant past, this square would have been filled with soldiers in blazing uniforms. Once inside the palace, the delicate balance of natural, Greco and Javanese architecture feels like a separate universe to the chaos on the outside. Just as we thought the soldiers had hung up their guns, 2 sabre-wielding men approached. Their uniforms blend the Royal Netherlands East Indies Army style with the traditional attire worn in Javanese courts for millennia. These days, they spend more time in photos than battlefields. Much like Ratu Boko, the complete history of the Surakarta Sunanate is too complex to cover in one segment of our travelogue. Essentially, they were formed from a schism in the mighty Mataram dynasty. The Dutch then widened the gap using classic divide and conquer, resulting in the Surakarta Sunanate and the Yogyakarta Sultanate. The ancient line was cracked, but far from broken. Over the centuries, the dynasty lost more and more actual power, eventually settling as guardians of Javanese culture, collecting relics and traditions, making sure that the future generations remember where they came from whilst they plough forwards. Even a complete Philistine like me could walk through this museum for hours, studying the exhibits in meticulous detail, never quite getting my fill of knowledge and art. The intended effect was certainly achieved. It instilled in me a dread fascination for this incredible culture, one I still haven't shaken. Before we move on with our adventure, I think you should know the museum's prices. The entry price is only $1 or 15,000 rupiah in local currency. Guards ain't free, but they are cheap. You can have a photo for the gram with one for about 23 cents. And of course, I know best, and I didn't use one, but English-speaking guides can be employed for as little as $2. You know, when you first board a train in Indonesia, you get these childish visions of travel and adventure. But 3 hours into your 9-hour journey, you begin to realise that they are really, really boring. In the early hours of the morning, we boarded a train heading further eastward. We made our way through more mountains, ravines, rivers, jungles and even reservoirs, eventually making our way to the city of Malang, to get in a car and climb a bloody mountain to get to the small town of Batu.
I stay under glass. I look through my window so bright. I see the stars come out tonight. See the bright and hollow sky. Over the city's ripped back sky.
Malang, at least what I saw of it anyway, seemed to be the poshest city in all of Java. Everywhere on the street had a detached mansion that was full of affluence, wide pavements, trees and a lot of statues. I mean, just look at the splendour. Oh yeah, did I mention we had to climb a bloody mountain? The Batu Night Spectacular is one of the quaintest theme parks I've ever seen. Literally built into the side of a mountain, it really is an oddity that you won't find anywhere in the world. It even has these interactive art things that my girlfriend Sarah is demonstrating how to use. Unfortunately, there is more information about Prambanan's construction than the BNS's, so I'm not sure when it was opened, but I do know why. It's bloody brilliant. Sure, it's no Disneyland, it does have a few go-karts and a couple spinning rides, but there's no roller coasters or anything like that. However, after a long day, all you want to do is have some relaxing fun, and pyrotechnics are fun. It does have a funfair style arcade that was so good even the staff got involved. And, with absolutely no help whatsoever from the power of editing, you too could be a novice Legolas.
Shut up!
Pretty good.
After all this, you can always venture into the glossy and strangely beautiful night market. Unless, like us, you're exhausted and just wanted to get to bed.
Trying to find the exit. Found it.
After leaving this place, stranded in the dead of night, I knew for sure that I'd never been so far from home, and never been so excited. Many thanks for staying with me through this whole thing, and many thanks for waiting so patiently. If you like and subscribe, you'll not only help me, but you'll be notified when episode 3 is released, and you'll get to see many more of my Indonesian adventures. Anyway, thank you again, and bye for now.